Welcome to Getting Sports with Drunk. I'm your hostess, Cupcake the Riddler, and I'm joined by
Solzy.
Mock.
Sheen Washable.
Nope.
J-Mark.
And Kendall.
Yeah, and you gotta remember, you're a household appliance, Mock. It's Mock Sheen Washable.
It's horrible.
You're leaving out like a lot of syllables.
Well, a big applause to J-Mark for he knows the timing. So he
Yeah.
doesn't just say his name, so we can get the Mock Sheen Washable in
Practice
there.
makes
Yeah,
perfect.
he's got this good pause going.
Wish I could be household appliance.
You are, Kyle. You are.
Solzy fork.
That's not an appliance.
Solzy fork.
You could be our toaster.
That's right.
Private stock getting hit early.
I'm
Kyle
okay with
delving
this.
right into the private stock. So, starting lineup, our producer, Mr. Kendall Reed, was the chosen one to select our beers for today. So, you went a little off killing here. We didn't all get a different beer. We all have the same beer. Tell us what you got.
Today we're having our first GSWD Oktoberfest. So we have from all the way from Germany.
Wow.
We have a Steins as well.
Yep.
I don't think I can pronounce it.
It's Hofbrau
Hofbrau.
Oktoberfest.
Oktoberfest.
And
Hofbrau.
he got the imported mini keg,
Very cool.
the 5-liter mini keg. So that's pretty cool. Draft taste.
There you go.
So we have our toast to excellence. Seeing as today is going to be a show all about the start of the NHL season, our toast of excellence is to Jaromir Jagr for getting onto an NHL team finally, joining the Calgary Flames late in the offseason. So welcome back,
It's good stuff. It's good
Oh, yeah.
stuff.
Iron Man of the
Iron
NHL.
Man. So toast to Jagr.
Puck, yeah.
All right, puck, yeah. Private stock for you, Jeff. Speaking of private stock, I also have to do some private stock. We're changing things up a bit, but this is pretty gross. So this is gonna be my disgusting shot for the day because I got the trivia question wrong. So I'm gonna delve into this.
I gotta stop making bad
Kendall,
puns,
do you
though.
remember what's in this at all?
A little bit. This is the second release of the private stock for GSWD. This kind of includes some bourbons, some scotches.
Pretty smooth after the initial flamethrower in your mouth.
I
Mock
remember
also
there was
has
a
to do-
couple of different Jamesons in there.
Yep, the Caskmates is in
There
there
was
as
some
well as
Tito's.
Black Barrel Tito's, yep. Seagram's VO.
and it's bottled in, which includes some of the liquid Seagram's
Yeah.
VO.
You know the thing is, so it burns immediately, and then it gets really mellow. You get a lot of flavor, and then it continues to burn. It's like if Everclear had a flavor, this is what it would be.
Analysis.
Jeff doesn't seem too impressed.
Mock, you have to do one too. Your
No,
team,
this is a hockey show.
your team is still winless.
Nah, this is a hockey show.
You know, I think you should do one.
It's a hockey show.
So I have my shot to delve out now between you gentlemen. So I had to do a lot of math for this one. Turned out I didn't have to do that much math. A little bit, but
Just ran
So-
some quick equations.
as we said, our toast of excellence was for Jagr. He is now enduring his 27th season in the NHL, dating all the way back to the 1990, before any of us were born. He's played for quite a number of teams.
That's a
He's
lunatic.
got a traveling fan club called the Traveling Jagrs that all dress up as Jaromir Jagr and wear his jersey with the mullet and everything. So from all of the teams he's played for, if you add up all of his jersey numbers, you get this number. What is it? Come on, no silence.
All right, 99.
99. So you're saying for all the teams he's played for, his jersey numbers only add up to 99.
I don't know what his number would have been. What if he was a couple fours in there, or
I'm sure he
18?
wore like 61 year. I'm gonna go with
See, I don't have-
312.
Okay.
See, I'll stand by my 99, but I wish I had a base number.
297.
All right.
381.
381. All right. So Kendall, you lose, but none of you were even close. It's 612.
Holy
He wore 68 for every team he's played for, which includes the Penguins, the Capitals, the Rangers, the Flyers, the Stars, the Bruins, the Devils, the Panthers, and now the Flames.
It's impressive.
Yeah, that's why I was like, oh man, I don't remember if he wore 68 everywhere. He wore 68 everywhere. So all I really had to do was look up how many teams he played for. I did all this nice math out. It's just a 68 9 times. So Kendall, you get to do a shot next show. You
All
excited?
right, I'm very excited.
All right. So we said NHL show. We're trying to get these young bloods over here, the household appliances and the newborn father
forks.
to be all that up to date with NHL. We're trying to get them more like the psycho hockey players that we love.
We want more hits.
Yeah. I think the best way to lead it off is, I don't think we've really delved into our favorite hockey teams on air before. I mean, they're in our bios on Facebook, so if you haven't checked those out, check those out. So we'll lead off with Maxine Washable, big hockey fan. Unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to do a fantasy draft on NHL and figure out who your favorite team would be like we did with
Yeah,
NBA.
I kind of came in already with one. Well, I used to kind of have two, but one fell off because I got rid of the two players I liked.
Anybody who's listening right now that loves hockey is going to really cringe at the two teams he's going to say he liked.
Well, I grew up, my dad was always a big Rangers fan, so I kind of always sort of followed them. And then a friend of ours, Shane, brought me to a hockey game. Really got into the Bruins for a few years.
Nothing like 11 teams that just want to murder each
Yeah,
other.
but I liked 2 players on the Bruins, and they traded them both, so when I was done with them, go Rangers.
All right. Your goal is by the next show, and we're going to hold you to it, and if you can't do it, no notes. It all has to be from memory. You have to do a shot if you can't do it. I need you to name me 12 players on the Rangers.
Yikes.
Kyle?
Rick Nash.
I am a Penguins fan.
It's still determined between all of us if he's a bandwagon Penguins fan or not.
No,
He absolutely is.
Yeah.
He said he's always liked the Penguins.
I'm a Pennsylvania fan. I never really liked the Flyers.
You never watched it.
Have you, Jeff?
Always,
Have you?
All the time.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
Look at the anger in his
We'll,
face.
we'll segue into some bandwagon
Look at
fans.
the legitimate anger we have.
Kendall, Jeff, who are your favorite teams?
We like the Blackhawks.
Kendall's really gearing up for a
That's
dual
right.
Blackhawks
Yeah,
there.
you really ruined it for me.
I
Now,
want to see how you'd go solo there.
it's funny. It's like, so by definition, it's bandwagon, but they don't like the Blackhawks for championship purposes. They like them because,
You like
You like him.
yeah, pretty much that's all there was to it.
Essentially.
Jeff and I lived together. Kendall was over a lot.
Did you just give
I
me an
watched a
evil
lot of
eye?
hockey, including the Blackhawks, so which means I'm a Blackhawks fan. But I'm Chicago everything, so I'm no bandwagon fan. I remembered when we sucked, and it was fantastic.
Hey, Chicago runs on Duncan.
That's true.
I-
Yeah, look at that.
You know.
That's Jeff's favorite player is Duncan Keith. Who's your favorite player, Kyle? Kendall? That's a
Ooh.
shot. That's a shot. Yeah, I'll take a shot. But who's your favorite player?
I was going to go with Andrew Ladd, but I think it's going to be Duncan Keith as well.
I like
Get
Ladd.
up.
I'm a big Ladd fan. What did you just say, Jeff?
I said I need a shot of that private stuff.
Oh, okay.
We'll hand it right over.
So the season started. We missed the beginning of the season. It didn't coincide with recording. The delay between recording and posting. We're only a week in. I don't think any teams played more than 3 games yet, not counting tonight's games. So we're gonna have Mock and Kendall. They're gonna do some hosting here, since I'm gonna be doing a big portion of talking. So
Well, first out of the gate, Paul. I mean, you've probably watched more than any of us here.
Nope.
Who's a hot team?
well, you could say the Flames are on fire. Yeah,
We're
I'll
gonna-
take it. No,
And pass it
I
on
didn't
back.
actually, the
We're
Flames
gonna
are actually
burn
not
through
on this
this.
list. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an expected trio. I tried to pick like the 3 hottest teams. Toronto is on fire. They're the highest
Matthews.
scoring team in the NHL right now. I think they're at, not counting any action tonight, I think they're at 19 goals for the season.
Wow.
The next team is the Blackhawks. They're 2-0-1. Their only loss coming in overtime to the Maple Leafs. They're the second highest scoring team with 18 goals. So, a lot of offense early for those teams, which is, there's a big question mark on what the Blackhawks were going to do offensively. And St. Louis, they're 3-0. They had an impressive opening night win against the
Penguins.
against the Penguins. So
Good.
it's good. Yeah. Yeah,
So
yeah.
on the counter of that, who's a team that's not?
The Predators are 0-2.
So that's
Way to
not-
jump in there.
dead answer to it.
Definitely off to a bad start.
Well, after
Yeah,
going to the Stanley Cup,
Yeah, they went to the Stanley Cup. They weren't able to get the job done. They started off very slow. Got shut up by the Penguins, who
Still early, but
Yeah. This is all just after a week of hockey. Obviously, everything can change, injuries, whatever the case may be. But you said the Predators, they haven't played a home game yet. But San Jose's 0-2. They're not looking that hot right now. They haven't played as well. Their top guys haven't been performing. Nashville, they got shut out to the Penguins. They lost 5-3. I don't remember to who. And the Rangers haven't really looked that good. They did put a good win together against Montreal on Sunday. But, I mean, they haven't really looked like themselves. So,
surprising start, the brand new Las Vegas Golden Knights.
yeah.
That's an interesting team name. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
It's a little long.
Did you guys ever, this isn't
I
hockey, but
almost want to get rid of Golden.
did you guys ever watch the, Like Mike? You ever watch that movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bow Wow. I was watching one of the Vegas Knights games, and the commentator, they were coming off the ice on a fast break, and they said, "Here come the Knights," and I literally just couldn't help but immediately think about the NBA commentator saying it when the Knights were coming back against the Raptors after Bow Wow came back, and it killed me. I mean, yeah, Vegas is a 2-0. They got a game tonight against the Coyotes. They already beat them once, took it to overtime. They're a question mark in my book. I don't want to say they're hot because they're a new team. They're not going to be too hard to figure out, and there's not a lot of chemistry. And James Neal's doing, their big acquisition from the Predators is doing pretty much all their scoring.
Well, they came back versus Arizona there. They were
Yeah,
behind the whole entire game, and then the last
It was like the last 5 minutes they scored, then they scored in overtime. But again, it was James Neal had one of those goals. He scored both their goals the other game. So if nobody can pick up the slack, I mean, James Neal would need to put up about 80 goals.
Wow.
Which isn't going to happen. There's only one player that is pretty much on pace for that. We'll get to him later. And then Montreal and Pittsburgh are kind of my other question marks. Again, it's too early, but Montreal's a powerhouse team. Pittsburgh's a powerhouse team, both out of the East. Pittsburgh's 1-1-1. They did have an impressive third game. They shut out Nashville, who does have high-power offense capabilities.
That's got to hurt Nashville.
But they lost their home opener in overtime to St. Louis. Then they got decimated, even though it was a back-to-back, but they got destroyed by the Blackhawks 10-1. So, both their goaltenders did not have good outings in their first game.
Niemi needs to retire.
It's veteran leadership. Murray he's played well. I mean, he got the Stanley Cup, but he's still young. He's still not as experienced as you'd like him to be. Niemi brings in that veteran leadership. I mean, he's a cup winner with the Blackhawks in 2010. He's been on a lot of playoff teams. He's on the Sharks for a while. He's got leadership. At the same time, I mean, the Blackhawks, they just had it clicking that night. 10 goals is not something that just happens. I mean, even against bad teams, you'll see a good team win.
The Rangers
6-2.
lost 10-1 too, right?
I think it was something like that. There's a couple teams that
Kyle.
put up some big scores.
Getting the rust out, I guess.
But it's goaltending. I mean, Price has had, he's played well, but he's had some rough patches. Canadians as well. They're losing right now. We have the Blackhawks Canadians game playing around in the background, and so it's question marks early. Is it a sign of things to come, or is it just a rough start? So we'll see what happens. I got to do my private stock now. I need to wet my whistle.
Now you already touched on him briefly, Paul. The only player right now on pace for 80 goals is Alex Ovechkin. What's he already have, like 7 goals on the season?
Yeah, so he's disgusting. Age
is
is
an understatement.
Well, I mean, as you guys know, he's up there. I mean, he's on the wrong side of 30. I don't know exactly how old he is, but he's up there. He's been around for a while. Not to say he can't score goals. He's a consistent 40-goal.
He seems to always be scoring a million goals.
But he opened up the season, to those of you who hadn't been following your non-favorite teams. Ovechkin opened the season with back-to-back hat tricks. Had a 4-goal game and a 3-goal game. That's pretty insane.
It's all about the sauce, baby.
I mean, there's a lot of players that posted hat tricks early in the season. I want to say it was, can't remember who it was. Oh, Brandon Saad for the Blackhawks posted a hat trick against the Penguins. Wayne Simmons had a hat trick in the Flyers' first game. McDavid's had a hat trick, but to put 2 hat tricks up in back-to-back games, it's just insane.
Didn't he have one in the first period of one of the games?
I don't know if it was that early, but he did have it pretty early. It might have been the first
I saw
period,
the headline.
but
He had it quick.
Yeah, he had it very quick.
Yeah, it's all about the sauce.
I don't see Sid Crosby on that list.
Well,
Sid Crosby.
It's a
do
question
his
mark
job.
thing, and that's gonna be a
Down
fun
year.
thing. I'd love to debate it with Kyle because Kyle stands by his guys more than any other person at this table. And, I wish Kyle knew a little more about hockey, but hopefully later on in the season we can have the debate about who's the best player in the NHL right now, because it's not Sidney Crosby.
Hey, it doesn't have to be.
But Kyle will argue it once he realizes that he, the stats and whatnot.
It's all about the sauce.
It's Connor McDavid. He's the best. End of story. But, yeah, I mean, Ovechkin's just gross. I mean, the guy, he has, no teeth. He's Russian, and he scores a lot of goals.
He's just a good dude, man.
Yeah.
Just a good dude.
Great
man.
insight, Kyle. Great insight.
Well, I need you to quickly transition here.
Ooh, I see what you did there.
Yeah, shot.
It's looking like, Jonathan Quick is looking like he's back to how he was, because I know last year was kind of a rough year for him, and so far it seems like he's playing pretty well.
He was hurt last year.
Yeah, he missed a lot of time last year. We see Jeff Martin is our stats insider for the NHL.
I didn't take this job. It was forced.
No, I mean, I can cover Quick. That's not a problem. No, it's all right. I got it.
Wrestle for it.
The Kings have played, I think it's 2 games thus far.
2 games.
He's averaging a half a goal allowed, which
Only
is
half a goal allowed.
pretty insane.
It's pretty good at the start of the season.
His save percentage is above 98, which is, fantastic.
Insane.
He's got a shutout and he's got 2 wins. He's looking like he's back to form, which
Also,
He's just quick. man.
shutout. He has a shutout.
yeah, he has a shutout.
Jeff, you're doing a great job.
Thanks.
I didn't think anybody else heard that.
Quick is just, I heard you. Quick is just, he's the cornerstone of that team. When Quick's not playing well, the rest of the team really struggles. It's really tough. They're a team, the Kings, that have a lot of potential. Of course, they won 2 Stanley Cups not too long ago.
Yeah.
But when Quick's not on his game, the rest of the team seems to really suffer. They have a top-notch defense. They can score goals. but it just seems like when he's not in net, they're.
Well, they have 2 great goalies now, don't they?
I'm not sure what the status is with Ben Bishop. I actually haven't looked into that.
All
I
right.
was going to say they live and die by quick.
Yeah, that's pretty much how
If
it
he's
is.
on,
I mean,
they're on. If he's off, they're off.
I mean, Montreal's another team that has a superior goaltender that they kind of rely on a lot, but they tend to perform okay without him. So it's a little tough, but what are you going to do?
Now, here's something that's interesting. I feel like in the NFL, you hear a lot about rule changes, but in NHL, you don't. And this is something I wasn't even aware of. They changed the face-off rules.
Yeah, so face-off rules have been kind of like a real big deal this season and the off-season leading up to it. The long and the short of it is the face-off, if you've watched hockey, there's 9 face-off spots. You've got 5 in the neutral zone, and then you've got 2 on either end of the ice. There's little L shapes outside of the dot. The skater is supposed to have a skate in each side of those L's, and they're supposed to be squared up with the other side of the ice. They're not supposed to. They can't have a shoulder dipped. They have to have their stick down. They can't. They can't be doing any sort of thing that gives them the advantage. The minute you put your right shoulder down, you're not squared up. You already have the advantage to get in, and they're trying to stop that. But the problem is this rule, much like in the NFL, you talked about. How many rules in the NFL are not black and white? Roughing the passer calls, hitting low, pass interference, what is, what's not, hitting, illegal hitting with your crown or your helmet, whatever, all that stuff. There's all these, you see them every week, and it's the face-off rule is really suffering from that.
Mm-hmm.
Last night was a prime example. I was watching the Blackhawks playing the Maple Leafs, and Taze was, a superior face-off man, was thrown out of the circle, I don't even know how many times. And there's not really clear reasons as to why he wasn't in the circle, why he got thrown out. It's kind of... It's just Brad Marchand has spoken out against it already. He's been thrown out of the face-off circle when he does take them. Krejci has been thrown out. What's his name? I'm missing his name there. Bergeron's been thrown out. It's a lot of star athletes and star face-off men's that that's what the center's job is.
Mm-hmm.
They're not getting the chance to do what they're paid to do. And when you have somebody like Taze, who's a 70% face-off guy, high 60s to 70%. Get thrown out, and then you have a left winger who takes maybe 12 face-offs a game, or a season come in. It takes a big chunk off of your ability to get the puck.
Is it something that will get better as the season goes on, do you think? As they adjust, or is it just going to be a pain point all season?
It just seems like it's annoying right now, doesn't it?
It'll get better as time goes. People will adapt, and they'll kind of learn what certain refs like. Any sport, you once you've seen whether it's umpires, NFL officials, NHL officials, NBA officials, you kind of get a gauge, just like with players. You do your scouting for players and what their tendencies are. Certain refs have certain tendencies. There's NFL refs that are more likely to let a stiff arm 20 yards off the line of scrimmage go as long as it's not blatant or, something aggressive. There's the same thing with NHL officials. There's certain officials that will just let them play versus ones that are very
because
nitty-gritty.
I know that Ed Hockley's crew throws the most flags in the NFL. Is there a certain type of refs for NHL?
That's just because he wants his biceps as on the camera as often as possible.
Watching that Saints game, dude, there was 30 flags.
Well, that's on the teams, so
Yeah.
I mean, let's get away from that.
Here's the thing. I haven't really looked too in depth into the NHL officiating. I don't really know if they work in pairs like they do in the NFL. The thing too is the NFL has a set amount of games that are played, and they always play one of 3 days out of the week, with the exception of that random Saturday they like to do in December. Hockey, just like baseball and basketball, is an every night thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't be surprised if certain team NFL groups do stick together officials. They call a game in Pittsburgh, and then they just travel to go call a Flyers game the next night. But I have no idea how it works.
I always think if it's not broke, you shouldn't fix it. What do you think about the rule change? Is it something that you agree with personally?
It's one of those things where it's I just think the officials should have cracked down more on the old policies.
Yeah.
Because the rules were it's funny, the rules were changed, but they weren't. Really what it is it's the NFL or the NHL officials cracking down more on the dipping of the shoulders or not having, being squared up to the other opponent.
Dipping.
But the other thing too is there's weird face-off rules. If the face-off is taken in center ice, it's a rule that the visiting team has to put their stick down first.
Really?
That's a rule. Just like it's a rule that, I don't remember which team it is, but there's a rule that a certain player has to scrape the ice off of the face-off dot. It can't be the other team. So there's weird rules. So they're cracking down on all of them, but it just kind of seems like it's kind of overkill. And so there's not a lot of explanation into why.
Additional rule change that I don't really know what has changed. I didn't know really the rule before was on slashing.
I mean, Jeff and I were talking about it earlier. The slashing rules. We were talking, like it's again, related to the NFL thing. You're trying to protect certain parts of players. They get rid of leading to the head with any body part, to avoid concussions and whatnot. The slashing rules have really been kind of upkept, and Jeff and I were talking about it. They're just, there's high sticks which go to the face and whatnot, and hookings, but slashing a lot of times they're trying to protect, fingers and hands. They got gloves, but they're not as thick as you think. I mean, because you got to remember they got to move their
use your
fingers.
hands.
Yeah, it's not like a mitt. It's a real glove that's got
hands to be
individual
protected at the end of the day.
And Jeff was saying he was watching one of the games, and he saw one of the players get slashed right across the back of the hand.
Did not look fun.
Right.
I'm not trying to be a part
Why
of that.
don't we do that to you right now?
Well,
For the
record
right
it.
price. For the right
The
price.
rest of your beer.
All right.
It's just tough. I mean, the slashing rule. As an NFL fan, we've all seen it. There's certain things you agree with. There's certain things you don't. Cam Newton last year just bitched and moaned about being targeted and whatnot for hits, and it's like you want players to be protected. You don't wish injury upon anybody. Like,
Exactly.
even no matter
At
who.
the end of
I
the day,
hate Aaron Rodgers, but I
player
don't
protection.
want him to actually get his collarbone broken. I might scream it 6 or 7 times a game, but I don't really want it to happen. Kyle's a vindictive who wants Joe Flacco to die,
Oh yeah,
but he doesn't really mean that in his heart.
I don't know.
I know.
Yeah, he sucks now, so it's okay.
So the slashing calls, I mean, there are slashing calls that, there's slashing that is on purpose. It's meant to be type thing. Like they're mad, whatever the case might be. They're trying to pick a fight. But a lot of times, slashing calls, you're trying to get the stick around and you just don't get it down in time and it comes across the body instead of down at the skates.
Now, real quick, what is the financial danger to these players? I mean that because you always hear, Terrell Owens was, fined $650 million for, doing whatever.
Wow.
I feel like you never.
That's quite the fine.
It's just
hefty.
it's just a
Don't
whatever.
worry, he
number.
borrows money from DMX.
Yeah, they got the same broker, but I feel like you never hear that type of thing. For
So there are fines. I mean, fines usually come more for things like dirty hits and high sticking calls. Duncan Keith had one, I think it was 2 years ago, right before the postseason. He got hit into the boards. He went down. He'd been beefing with this player all game, and he got up and he just swung his stick right at the guy's face and just cut his cheek open, which it's a penalty in its own right, but he was fined for it. Slashing, they're trying to add.
That's when you just turn the other cheek.
Hey, I like that. Pro private stock.
God, we're
Order.
burning through this tonight.
Yeah.
This is unheard of.
They're going to start weighing down on fines more for slashing calls, just because you see it. Was it Nick Perry for the Packers right now? Is playing with this big cast on his hand with his club. Pierre Paul did it after he lost his finger for a little while.
JJ Watt did it for a while.
You can't play hockey with a broken hand. It just doesn't work. You need 2 hands on the stick. You're not scoring goals with one hand unless you're Alexander Ovechkin.
Pierre Paul was raining fists too at that club. That was a lot of fun to watch.
So
No, I got a question for you.
yes.
So new teams always come and go, right? Everyone thinks about new teams, right?
Yep.
The 3 destinations are Milwaukee, Houston, Atlanta. What are what destination do you think it would be the most sense?
Well, those aren't the 3 main destinations.
Oh, but they are.
No, that's
But
But that's what's written on the board.
well. So
Yeah, you go ahead.
I need it.
there's prefacing that needs to be done with this. There is no actual there's talk about it, there's rumors, but there's no actual confirmation that a 32nd NHL team is coming into the works. It just makes sense because the way things are right now, there is 16 teams in the East and there's 15 teams in the West. Before the Vegas, it was 16 and 14, which, I mean, it doesn't make that big of a deal, but I mean, on paper, in black and white, it gives Eastern teams a more disadvantage to make the playoffs. You're competing, you're 1 out of 16 versus 1 out of 14. So, there's been moving that's gone around. I mean, big market teams, or big market cities are Milwaukee. The Bucks are finally starting to come alive in the NBA. As
Can
we
I-
know, most. Oh, go
Can I
ahead.
cut you off a second?
Yeah.
Would it be fun? Should we go around the table and say where we think they should go and give a reason why?
Sure.
All right.
But
I'll go first.
No double dipping.
All right. I'll go first. I think they should go to Houston
Why?
because I like Houston.
Saw that coming.
Well, I mean, I think everyone saw it coming.
Well, Houston's a big spotlight too because I don't remember the guy's name, but the owner of the Rockets said that if it makes sense, if on paper it works, he'd put an NHL team in the stadium tomorrow. I mean, granted, it's revenue. He'd like to own an NHL team, you know, you look at all these sports teams across all sports, and there's only, granted it's in the South, but there's only one Texas hockey team, and Texas is big enough, has enough cities to have more than one. So Houston's yours?
Houston.
Because you like Houston?
Because I like Houston, and I think it's a big market area. It has a big draw for cultural icons in hip hop and whatnot. That's kind of me, just
Big in hockey.
Yeah, that definitely brings a good hockey. Hip hop and hockey.
It
could be a
could.
new
Who's to
documentary.
say not? I mean, Drake, from goes up and watches one Toronto game, and now everyone is hanging out there.
Well, he's probably watching Golden State now.
Well,
wherever he flops to every other.
Jeff, what do you think?
I'd like to see him here in Connecticut.
There's talk about that.
It's kind of maybe not that big of a long shot, more of a dark horse, I'd say.
There's been talk and rumors about it, but it's funny. There hasn't been talk about an expansion team coming to Connecticut. There's been talk about the Islanders being sold to Connecticut to become the Whalers. Because the Whalers, as everyone knows, the Whalers, Connecticut fans, heartbroken. The Whalers are sold. They move to Carolina, and then they win a championship.
But you know what, though? When the Whalers were here, no one went to games. They had no one in the stands. Their attendance was horrible, so they moved. It's tough for a professional sports team to be here in Connecticut. You're between New York and you're between Boston.
Well, I think the big problem is I don't think it was as much attendance as it was just like tourism is the real thing. I mean, like there was plenty of fans, but the problem is like, granted, yes, I mean Connecticut has plenty of like things you can do, but it's not a tourist site. The other thing too is you look at Hartford versus a place like Boston, New York, or Houston. There's just not enough room to put a full-size capacity building. Yeah, the Civic Center is not that big when you look at it compared to other places.
You take like a trip to New York. Sometimes you find yourself, let's just we'll go to a Knicks game. You're there for a week. You come to Connecticut, it's not the same thing.
We have the Essex steam train at Riverboat, so pack your bags.
Moving on.
Yeah, you can have them.
Tickets sold.
I like your thought process a lot though, with bringing a team to Hartford, making the Whalers a team again. I mean, we have the Hartford Whale, but
something.
Get rid of that.
I think it would be good for a few seasons, and then people would stop going again.
So the thing is, I think it would be more successful now. I think it would be more successful now because hockey has really grown a lot. And the other thing too is you look at teams like, if it's an expansion team, for example, you look at teams. You have the Islanders, you have the Flyers, you have the Sabres, you have the Devils, the Rangers, and the Bruins. All those teams are not that long of a drive to come watch your favorite team play an away game. And a lot of those teams are good. I mean, Buffalo's kind of on the rise a little bit. They're looking better. Boston's always contending. The Rangers are always contending. The Islanders have McDavid, who's a hot young guy. The Devils are contending. The Flyers are looking good. So,
think about the Connecticut fans. Say they like the Flyers. They like this team, that team. They'll go to the Whalers versus them.
I think it would be more successful now than it was then. Hockey's gotten bigger, and like I said, there's more.
I'd love to see it.
Fans can travel to see their favorite teams play away games because there's a plethora of teams in a very small region in the New England, New York, Pennsylvania area. So I think it could work. Mark, what do you think?
It's tough. As soon as Kendall posed the question, the first city I thought of was Tulsa. I have no idea why.
Has a good ring. Do you have a name of the team?
No.
The Tulsa Tornadoes.
That's probably what they'd be.
But
I have a website.
I don't know.
Tulsa Turpentine.
What?
I would like to see, just for once, a professional sports team in Alaska. It makes no sense to do it, but it would just be cool to see.
It'd be fun.
I mean, Alaska wouldn't be that crazy for hockey because you consider how many teams there are in Canada.
Yeah.
True.
Granted, I mean it would be a completely different time zone. I mean, it's not like like Dallas when the Dallas has to travel to Toronto. I mean, that's not something you just you're okay.
Probably
we're just going
don't
to
look
travel
forward to that matchup.
Yeah, we're just not going to travel to we're just going to go to Toronto for 3 seconds. It's no big deal. It's a heavy trip.
Yeah.
Kyle?
Bring back the Thrashers.
Gross.
I get the team name and everything was not cool, but Atlanta was a team. And I feel like the fans miss him a little bit.
I don't think so.
Wasn't that a horrible skateboarding magazine?
Thrasher? I think it still is a magazine.
Atlanta's tricky. I mean,
it's a big city.
So essentially, what happened was Winnipeg sold the Jets to Atlanta. They became the Thrashers, and then when Atlanta decided that they just couldn't house an NHL team, nobody went to watch it, and the team was bad, and it just didn't work. They sold them back to Winnipeg, and that's when the Central Division got all screwed up the way I hate it, and that's when the Red Wings went out to the East. So I would love to see a team put in the East because I'd like to see the Red Wings come back and be a part of this Central Division because the Central Division is the one that's down a team now. So I would like to see the Central Division gain the Red Wings back and get that Blackhawks, Red Wings, Wild Blues rivalry going again because the Red Wings they're always a tough grind team to watch.
Yeah.
So not Atlanta, not Atlanta.
Do you have a city in mind?
Yeah, Miami.
Miami?
No, not Miami. I'm just kidding.
Tulsa, right?
Ice
You
would
want
melt
Tulsa?
pretty quick.
Tulsa. It's tough. I mean, like, part of me really wants to see another team get added to Canada, but I just don't know that they really have the big cities for it. I mean, if you're a fan of the Goon, you could have the Halifax Islanders. Highlanders come in. That'd be cool. It's tough. I mean, I could see a team doing well in Seattle. You know, they don't.
It's funny. You'd think there would be a team there.
I could see a team doing well in either Seattle or Portland. So I think those would be like decent big market type things for people to come in. It's not that far of a trip from California for fans that want to go up and watch them. They've already got fan bases up there with the Seahawks, the Mariners. They've got the Trailblazers in Oregon. You know, the Ducks. You know, the college team. You know, there's definitely people there.
There's sports people there. For
Yeah,
sure.
and the thing too is like you don't have to worry about like the Mariners do. You don't have to worry about rain because it's indoors. So.
That would be the first
that's
open
like
top.
The NBA, they're always talking about trying to bring a team back to Seattle. And the biggest issue is competition. If you add another team, it kind of dilutes the competition. Do you think that's diluting competition or evening it up? Because, I mean, you look at the Golden Knights, they're the newest team. It's early, but they're starting off good.
Yeah. So, really, they've already made their bed by adding the Vegas Knights, so then they pretty much need to add another team now. They need to have 32. It needs to be 16 and 16, so everyone's got fair chances at the playoffs, and scheduling is a little easier, and it needs to work. In an ideal world, I don't think the Vegas Knights should have been created. Nothing against, the Vegas Knights, their team, the fan bases that might be out there. I just think that they should have just moved a team from the East to the West. They should have just put Detroit back in Detroit.
Seems like the easier move.
And made it 15 and 15. Now, that makes it a little more difficult because now you have just 2 divisions per conference.
Mm-hmm.
So you might have to kind of divvy it up to the NBA style where you have 3 divisions because unlike the NBA, NHL does seeding on divisional standings. So it's a little difficult, but at this point they've made their bed. They need to add a 32nd team. It's inevitable, I feel like, and it's just a matter of when.
Yeah.
You don't want to add one next season because it's just too much too soon.
No. Definitely. In the
Especially when you
near
have
future,
to,
I'd like
especially
see it happen.
supplemental draft wise. You don't want to keep taking players from teams.
What if we put a New Orleans Pelicans in the NHL?
Same type of team?
Same name, logo, everything. Just hockey.
Tom Benson might be about that.
Well, that's the thing. When you look at the big market places, you look at Milwaukee, you look at big ticket places. As much as I would love to see one in Connecticut, the problem that Connecticut faces is they don't already have the facility. I mean, they have the XL Center and they have the Civic Center still. The Civic Center is still around, right? Or they got
Hartford,
demolished. Yeah. So, but it's not really like a big venue anymore, and it's just capacity wise, it can't compete. But you look at Atlanta, Houston, Milwaukee, Portland. A lot of NHL teams share buildings with NBA teams.
Right.
They already have the stadiums.
Put them in with the Yard Goats.
Hey, I think the Hartford is bringing a lot of.
Could you imagine 41 home games outside? That would be such a pain in the ass.
I feel like Milwaukee would probably be the best bet. It's a colder climate. People in Milwaukee only have the Bucks and the Twins, right?
Milwaukee, Minnesota.
Shot.
Yeah, dude.
Milwaukee.
It was Milwaukee Twins.
Yeah, there's the Brewers. Yeah,
I love the Milwaukee Twins.
It's been a rough day, Kyle.
they have a football team too, just not in Milwaukee.
I just feel like Milwaukee would be the best bet. Cold climate, fans love them.
Well, you could add another team that would make the playoffs and then leave pretty much immediately.
This guy's toasted right now. Look at him.
Been a long day.
It's tough. I don't even know when this could happen. That's the problem. Like I said, supplemental drafts is the big thing. Teams already gave away players.
Yeah.
You see things like in the supplemental draft. There's only X amount of players you can protect from each position, and then
It wouldn't be fair to put all the teams through it again.
well, the thing
This
too is
soon.
a lot of teams, because the Vegas Knights, they benefit obviously because they get draft picks, but a lot of teams like the Bruins, for example, there are certain young guys that they didn't choose to protect because they haven't been that established yet. But a lot of teams offer trades. They offer picks to go ahead and do hey, I'm going to give you this pick and this pick so that you don't take this guy I can't save.
Yeah.
And you just, a lot of players that don't get saved are players that are kind of on the up but haven't proven themselves yet. The Blackhawks' biggest one last year was Marcus Kruger. He's a penalty kill machine, face-off machine, not really that proven offensively. And when you have players like Duncan Keith, Brent Seabrook, Taze, Kane, Crawford, you can only afford to save so many people.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it wouldn't be fair to do it to him again this soon, I don't think.
I wouldn't even imagine it happening for maybe another 3 seasons or something
That's
like
what
that.
I would say 3 or 4 is a good bet.
Yeah, it's going to take time. And the other thing, too, is I guess if Vegas works.
Yeah.
I mean,
True.
I don't know.
You can't really judge him off.
This
I
is
don't
the
know the
honeymoon
population
This is the honeymoon
of Las
period.
Vegas.
A lot of tourists.
But, right, I feel
Well,
like a lot of their team is banked off of tourists. And I know
That's
that
exactly what it is.
I know they've officially have been given clearance from the NHL. You can actually win tickets now in casinos.
That's pretty cool.
You can.
Where going?
That'd be like a good incentive for the people
Right.
of Las
Vegas
Vegas.
games.
So-
I'd say that the thing, like them going to Vegas, to me was genius because they
It's-
don't
there's
need to
always
have
appeal
a
in
home
Vegas.
fan base.
Yeah, well, the thing with Vegas is Vegas is struggling in its own right.
Yeah,
I mean, times aren't that easy in a lot of places. A lot of people aren't traveling, and if you book a trip to go to Fort Lauderdale for a week with your family, it's a trip to Fort Lauderdale. You're paying for airfare and hotel, and then you pay for food while you're there. Maybe go out to a movie or something. Vegas, it costs more to stay in Vegas for the week than it does to get there. Like, you pay for airfare and hotel, and then you probably spend just as much, if not more, on golf times, gambling, hookers, all those things just happen.
Yeah. I mean, take Clark Griswold, for example. I mean, took his family out to Las Vegas and,
Lost it all.
Lost it all. But, I mean, fortunately, Randy Quaid was able to help him out with the money that he was making.
Do you remember Randy Quaid's name?
I don't think I can
I
remember.
know it.
Do you know it?
It was Cousin Eddie.
Cousin Eddie.
Cousin Eddie.
Cousin Eddie.
I wish I had a cousin Eddie.
You got any damn bait?
You have an uncle, Eddie.
I do.
That's close.
He's gonna be living
Shout
with us
out.
soon.
You are?
Yeah, Uncle Eddie's moving in.
All right.
Let's save that for the personal show that we
Yeah.
do. You can catch our personal shows Sundays
Kyle's
at
Family
1 a.m.
Tree Show.
on Oprah Network. Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. Hockey season's here. It's my favorite time of the year. Just a lot of stuff happens. I love football, but it's gotten kind of somewhat predictable. The NBA is pretty much almost predictable.
Shot, yeah.
Go
Um,
Pelicans.
I'm a White Sox fan. I love watching my favorite team, but I can't really sit down and watch the Yankees play the Twins, and it's just too long for me.
This time of year.
They need to drop the MLB season to 10 games. You either have it or you don't. End of story.
This time of year is great because, like you said, hockey's starting, basketball's starting,
Yeah,
football's
going on.
going, and then it's the baseball playoffs. So you have like everything going at once, and it's great. Unless you're a Giants fan right now, and it's horrible. No, Kyle, this is a hockey show.
Right. Oh,
So, I encourage you, if you're not a hockey fan, to
Check it out.
give it a whirl. I know a lot of people. I've talked to a lot of people, and it really drives me nuts. You know what the like most common feedback is? People who are like, "Oh, I don't like watching hockey. I can't find the puck." That drives me nuts. You can't find the. What do you mean?
It's not that hard.
It just.
And there's nothing like going to an actual hockey game.
You don't even need to know where the
It's
puck
so much
is.
fun being there.
Yeah.
Which we are doing this year. We're going to go see the Bridgeport Sound Tigers play.
All right.
Excellent.
Sold.
we're going to Vegas.
Probably
Let's just say
not,
that,
Kyle.
let's say that.
Well, the other thing too
Yeah,
with
you
hockey and NBA,
Sure.
the leg up that they have in terms of viewing a sport from your couch versus the MLB and the NFL is it's not as easy to be at home officials. The dumbest thing the MLB ever did was implement the stupid box strike zone on your TV
I hate that.
and the
so
dumb
much.
yellow line in the NFL. How many times do you hear NFL commentators, remember the yellow line's not official.
Not official.
Then the guy gets the ball down and goes, "Oh, that doesn't look like it's close based on the yellow line." Well, okay, what does that mean? Thanks. And the strike zone is just all it does is it makes people at home. If you're by yourself, great. Chris Sale, that should have been a strike. Bottom corner, screw you. But when you're at a bar and it's a mixed crowd and people are getting mad, it drives me absolutely nuts. Luckily, that's impossible to do in the NHL. It's impossible to do in NBA, and thank goodness.
I got something that's really grinding my gears too.
Oh, go ahead.
It's kind of off topic, but at the same time, it's not. I'm sick of people trying to sue baseball teams for getting hit by foul balls.
Yeah, you're talking
Pay
about
attention.
the Yankees,
Pay
right?
attention, though.
Yeah, you know it's common.
Just
Well, there's
pay attention.
signs.
There's
There's
signs.
signs everywhere.
You take that risk. Like, everyone's just
I'm
trying
not
to make a
I'm not
quick
opposed
buck.
to the league implementing that every stadium should have nets
They
extending
should
to
extend
third
the
base.
nets, definitely. I mean,
you know the players feel bad when they do it.
Well, yeah, no player's
yes,
like, oh,
yes,
glad I
but
hit that guy.
It makes
like,
me
of course
so
not.
mad. Like, oh, I was blinded by a foul ball. You're
like, you
probably
know-
sitting
Well,
there
hold on.
your
Who's that?
phone.
Who's that guy that caused all the problems? The one I can't remember his name.
Josh Hamilton.
No, he hit
like
the
killed
he hit the
the guy
home.
technically. If you
He
want
hit the home run and then he just like stood at the plate and like watched it and then jawed with all the players in the infield as he was rounding the
Carlos
bases.
Gomez.
Yeah, him. He's happy when he hits a fan with a baseball.
I hate
He's
him.
really he
Cause-
actually goes and gets it and autographs it and then gives it to himself.
Like this year when Todd Frazier hit the little girl in the face.
No one wants to see that
He,
happen.
like he
Yeah.
he was sincerely like
He was
upset
crying.
about
he was in
it.
tears. There were a lot of players in
Him
tears.
and Holiday.
I definitely agree with the netting being extended. I'm just so sick of
Well,
hearing
'cause,
about, oh, we're suing the team.
Well, people don't want to do it implements. We've gotten way off topic, but a
Yeah,
lot of
sorry.
teams.
This is
don't
a hockey show.
Sorry.
a lot of teams don't want to implement it because, well, it kind of extends into hockey, and we'll get into that. A lot of teams don't want to do it because it obstructs viewing for the high paying seats. First of all, most of the time, no MLB team sells out every game. It doesn't happen. There's 182 games in a season, so you play
62.
162. So you play what is that? 81 home games.
Yeah.
You're gonna tell me you sell out 81 home games? Every time I've been to a baseball game, those are the seats that aren't filled. It's the
Even
outfield
the ones
seats.
right behind the backstop.
Yeah.
There's a netting and fence
Just
there.
just for one game.
City Field does it,
Like
don't
Jeff
they?
just said, for one game, get rid of the netting behind home plate.
Watch how much people appreciate it.
Let them
Yep.
have it.
Well, because
Oh,
the
no
Mets have it.
obstructions.
Don't the Mets have netting all the way down the baselines?
So I think
a
they,
lot of teams have implemented.
I think they
it so
started
far.
to do that.
Yeah,
They'll
if
all
you-
get
you
over.
gotta-
The
if
fans will
if
get over.
you
it. They're
can't
still
look
gonna go to
through
a game.
if you can't look through a thin wired net, there's bigger issues at hand
Yeah.
than the amount of money you're spending.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're blind.
The NHL has done it. The NHL has higher glass around from the blue line in each offensive zone, wrapped around to the other one to prevent the puck, and they've got netting. They didn't always have that.
That happened. Didn't like a lady get hit and she ended up dying, didn't she?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is like I'm not going to take anything away from baseball. I mean, it's a small little ball, but it has more give to it. I mean, if you watch a baseball get hit in slow motion, it kind of absorbs into itself.
Yeah.
And I know it can come off the bat. Frazier's, I think they said it came off the bat at like 101 miles per hour or something like that.
Girl's a champ.
And it hit that girl in the face. A hockey puck has no give to it. It's just a solid piece of rubber with
Yeah.
sharp edges.
That goes.
And those things,
right.
I mean, if you watch NHL, if you watch like the All-Star game, was it Zdeno Chara hit one at 108 miles an hour? I mean, players break the netting. Shea Weber hit a puck so hard it broke through the netting on the goal.
Yeah.
That, and it's got sharp edges. I mean, it should just be implemented. End of story.
End of story.
You know what you're getting into when you buy the tickets.
Exactly.
We've delved into time a lot, but I'd like to bring up one more NHL thing. I'd like all your guys' opinion.
What do
on
you
that.
got?
So this year, being that it's one of every 4 years, the Winter Olympic falls into the NHL season. The NHL has decided that they are not going to allow NHL players to break away from their teams and play for their home countries in the Olympics, because usually the NHL takes a halt pretty much during the month of February
Yeah.
for teams to do that. And the NHL, much like baseball, there's a lot of players from foreign countries.
Yeah.
You know, the World Baseball Classic, other nations' teams besides the USA are filled with players from the MLB. Hockey's the same way, more so. I mean, Finland, Sweden,
Yeah,
Russia,
all the European
Czech,
teams.
Canada,
Canada's full of
Um,
Cuba.
USA too. I mean, so this year teams aren't going to do it, and certain players have spoke out against it. Certain players haven't really voiced their opinion. Certain players like Ovechkin, you know, big name, big player for his team, said that he's going to do it anyway.
Good.
And you know, so I haven't really looked into that too much because it's all speculation. But you know, what does that mean? Is he going to be suspended? Because the NHL's not going to stop for him, which means if he does it, he's going to be missing 6-7 games for his team. And the other thing too is usually the All-Star game doesn't happen because of it. The All-Star game happens in February. They want the All-Star game. They want fans to be able to enjoy the All-Star experience. They want players to stay home and have their teams come and play. So what do you guys think about, you know, the NHL kind of stepping in and saying, "Hey, you're not allowed to represent your country in the Olympics. You have to. You're a paid member of the NHL by your team. You're here to play."
I really hate it. I see the NHL's point, like, you know, you're signed on contract with us, but at the same time, it's your country. These guys have been doing it for years. They play for their country. They represent where they're from. The NHL wouldn't exist without all these different players from these different countries.
The other thing about it too, the NHL, along with soccer, is probably the most global
Yes.
game. So you
100%.
have fans in Europe that want to see these guys play for their countries, and the players want to do it. I don't think the NHL should be the ones that make the decision that you are not able to do this.
And that's what sucks, because at the end of the day, it's a business, but I just hate seeing changes like this that take away from the global aspect of the sport.
So the players should be allowed to play for the country, but also another thing, the NHL, they have a D-League team. These players have an opportunity to play while the stars are gone. I think that's an opportunity for a lot of players, you know.
So you think the NHL shouldn't pause? They should just call up players and let if stars choose to leave.
That's a good happy medium. I'd like to see them pause like they've been doing. Like I said before, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But if you really have to, if you're the NHL, let them call up players. I think that is a good happy medium.
That is an interesting.
That's like the 40-man call-ups in baseball, exactly.
That is an interesting idea, because then, if around that time you have teams that are, fighting for a spot, then it's up to their players to say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to play. I'm going to stay here and help the team, or I'm going to go to the Olympics. And
well, I think a big problem with it too is you look at it, and it's not something that they can just work around and make it part of the NHL season, because it only happens every 4 years. If this was something that happened every single year, it might be different. It might just be, okay, hey, the NHL season is from October to January, and then March to June when the Stanley Cup. So it's different because it's every 4 years. Kyle, you got anything to weigh in on it?
Well, I like the whole concept that, like, they're not gonna,
Kyle, are you drunk?
It's been a rough day for Kyle.
I think Kyle is wasted.
Kyle's done.
If I wasn't confident he'd vomit all over his microphone, it'd make him take more private stock.
Oh, no. He's got the hiccups going. We got to wrap this up.
No, I'm good. So they shouldn't stop. The players should have the right to choose whether they want to play or not.
It's kind of what Kendall said.
Yeah. Like, if they want to go to the Olympics or they want to play for their team. It's their right to choose on where they want to go.
My whole standing on it, and I mean, I've never really looked up articles on the matter, because I'd really like to see like an actual interview, and I haven't really looked into it too much. But I would love to talk to a player, especially when you look at like Canada, for example, a team that's so well-rounded in the NHL, and then has a lot of people that can go for the Olympic team and make a difference. I mean, Sidney Crosby, Jonathan Toews, Shea Weber, all big names. I want to know, like I want to sit down with Jonathan Toews or Sidney Crosby, and I want to ask him, what means more to you? I mean, a gold medal for your country, or winning the Stanley Cup? Like, what one, feels sweeter? I mean, because Sidney Crosby would be a perfect person to ask. Captain of the Canada team, won 2 gold medals. Captain of the Pittsburgh Penguins, won 3 Stanley Cups.
Exactly, because it's a whole different, like, as a fan, you're not out there playing. You're not out there every night giving it your all. You don't know what they want, not what they want, but what means more to them. It'd
be interesting to watch. I mean, because when baseball was part of the Olympics, did a lot. I mean, I wasn't really following it at that point that much. But when baseball was part of the Olympics, did baseball players leave their MLB teams to go play in the Olympics?
I believe it was kind of like how the World Baseball Classic. I think the only difference was the change of name. Really, I think it was kind of the same thing.
Well,
no, because the Olympics happened in the summer, though, in the heart of the season.
The major league players stayed with their teams. They let the minor leaguers go to the Olympics.
Oh, okay. All right, that's interesting.
So, is to build on your theory. What if you let the quote unquote D-League NHL players go do the Olympics? I mean, actually, I hate that. Never mind. If you're a star and you want to represent your country, you should definitely.
You should have the choice.
And it's tough because we have nothing else. We have nothing else to base it off of.
I know.
No other.
At the end of the day,
basketball doesn't play in the summer, so all the NBA players can go play. There's no issues. I mean, some of them are asked not to for injury purposes, but they can do it if they want to, if they're offered the opportunity.
Yeah.
The MLB, like you said, it was a rule that the minor leaguers were allowed.
Just the players felt more towards playing for the team more than they do the country, because they don't. It's not the same thing towards hockey.
What do you mean? Just saying MLB players didn't feel
like the MLB players.
They didn't feel the need to represent their country as much as they needed to represent their team.
I think you'd find a lot of players would disagree.
Like that's what the World Baseball Classic is. That's why they made it the World Baseball Classics. The players can play during the off.
I'll agree with that.
So the baseball players decided, hey, I'm just going to play for my team, try and win a World Series. To them, that's more important than.
That's true. And I mean, you play 162 games with that team. It's a little. That's what I mean. It's a little different from hockey.
There's nothing to base it on.
There's
Which
nothing
is the problem.
quite like.
The flip side to it, I'm not personally a fan of it. I really enjoy watching hockey in the Olympics, and I like watching these stars go out and play with rival teammates and people that you wouldn't see them play
It's
with.
almost like an all-star game.
I mean, Marian Hossa and
Well,
Zdeno
competitive.
Chara, big heated rivalry teams, especially when the Blackhawks played the Bruins. They're neighbors in their home country, and they play together on the national team. I mean, there's players that get the opportunity to do this stuff, so it's interesting to watch. The catch side of it is it's really going to be interesting to watch what happens in the Olympics now for these star players that can't play, because forever it was Canada and the United States, Russia would make a run. Now you're going to have teams like Finland, Sweden, these teams that have their own hockey leagues in Europe and that are going to let their players play. And it's going to be interesting because you might see, Canada has no shortage of people that play hockey in it, but it's going to be interesting to see what these European stars do for their teams. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, I'm excited.
We'll talk about it when the time comes.
Yeah.
We'll wrap up. I know our producers is telling us that we need to shut up.
Well, speaking of baseball, be sure to talk. We're going to talk about.
Be sure to talk about.
Be sure to talk about. We're going to talk
The
about.
Oktoberfest has done
Yes,
a number
yes.
on us for this show.
Especially Kyle.
Yeah, we're well aware.
Kyle's ready for
to
bed.
say in so many
I'm
words.
good, man. Just hungry.
Be sure to check our show. We'll be doing a show in a couple weeks to kind of do an entire MLB postseason wrap up before the World Series. Do our predictions of the World Series. I believe as of right now, it's the Astros have beaten the Red Sox to move on to the ALCS.
Which
the Dodgers,
ruins my Dodgers-Red Sox prediction.
right? The Dodgers beat the Diamondbacks, so they're in the NLCS. And I don't know if the last time I checked, the Cubs game was postponed, so I don't know if they're playing it. And then it's Yankees and Indians are tied 2-2.
It's gonna be tough. Strasburg's not pitching tonight.
So, but stay tuned. Probably 2 weeks time, we'll have a whole postseason wrap up.
We got you guys. Don't worry.
Yeah, we're not going to let you down.
Or we will.
I won't
One
fail
or the
you
other.
this
Or we
next
will.
time, guys.
Kyle, you'll fail them every single
Always
time.
the best.
Probably.
Except when it's not.
Milwaukee Twins.
Make sure to follow us on all social media.
Be sure to find us on Facebook and Instagram at Getting
Do it.
Sports with Drunk. Twitter is GSWD_4.
Make sure to use the hashtag GSWD for all your daily needs, whether it's sipping private stock or loving the Milwaukee Twins.
And be sure to find us on Podbean,
Find us.
iTunes, and the Leeb Sports Network.
Search it.
Yeet.
And also check out. We're going to be doing the Stein Challenge. That's going to be up on all our form social media. We don't know who the lineup's going to be yet,
Right.
but there's going to be the Stein Challenge for
It's funny 'cause
Oktoberfest.
Kyle was supposed to record this, but I think he's going to go immediately to bed as soon as we stop recording.
I'm good, brah.
That's usually
Famous
followed by
last
vomit
words.
and then going to bed.
I'm
You're about to
gonna go to-
ruin your new Under Armour long sleeve shirt.
VAR.
Well, from all of us at Getting Sports with Drunk, I'm your hostess, Cupcake the Riddler.
I'm man of many names.
Mock.
Oh, I got interrupted. We didn't even do a beer review.
Oh, yeah, we almost missed that.
Shot, bro.
Yeah. All right. So, Souls, what did you think of the beer?
It was fantastic. I'm not gonna lie. I love this thing.
I don't think anyone should say a word. I think we should wrap it up with
Yeah,
that.
that pretty much seals the deal.
We here at Getting Sports with Drunk love this thing. We'll see you next week.
Hey everyone, I'm Joanna.
And I'm Nate, and we are Stranger Than.
We discuss a variety of mysterious topics, ranging from historic events to present-day urban myths and legends.
Please join us. Look up Stranger Than Podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and most other of your favorite places to get podcasts. Also check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/StrangerThanPodcast. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care.